What's up, y'all? Welcome to Corner Store Stories. And today, one of the dopest artists in the city pulled up, Jacques Francois. He talked about all the stuff he got going on, some of his new projects y'all can look forward to. So stay tuned and check it out. Only in New Orleans.
My name is Jacques Francois, and I'm a visual artist.
So where are you from?
From the West Bank. From the West Bank. I know I rep New Orleans all day, but my roots are the West Bank, like all parts of it. Gretna and Algiers specifically is where the bloodline really lies. So the West Bank, the best bank, the West Bank.
So tell us about the West Bank, the best bank. Tell us about that, your childhood growing up over there.
You know what? My childhood on the West Bank, which is why I take it so important, is it was such a community wherever I was, aunts and uncles and cousins. It was such a community of people and such a legacy of people. My namesake being a Francois, it's like once you are Francois on the West Bank in Algiers, everyone knows who you are, So it was a great childhood. I had a loving grandmother who raised the whole family, from my grandfather to my mama to my brother and sister. And, it was just a wonderful upbringing. It really did instill in me the importance of community, being born in the West Bank and being raised in the West Bank. So, yeah.
Cool. So with that childhood being said, did you grow up with both of your parents?
So, I did and I didn't. My dad and mom got divorced when I was young, like I was 3. So my mom and me were the main ones. But my dad and I, maybe once a year, I would visit him and my other siblings, wherever they were, So from Texas, Atlanta, and now Nashville. But my mom and me were the ones down here for the most part.
So how was that for you? Do you feel like it was, well, really, we've asked this question with everyone.
Yeah.
So we try to figure out, but just to share your story on how you feel that impacted you negatively and positively.
Oh, that's a good question. Man, you know what? So, this is a good question. So, I want to say not being raised with both parents. I'm going to say this. I have a best friend. My best friend, whose name is India, she's probably the only person I knew growing up who had both parents. She had a mom and a dad. And it was like a rarity to have somebody have a 2-parent household, And I think a lot of times when you are raised by one parent, specifically me having a mom, you got to play that duality role of being an enforcer and a tender, caretaker for your children. And so I think a lot of times I missed out on a lot of stuff that maybe a father figure would have instilled, But on the flip side, being raised by specifically my mom and all the women, from my mama to my cousins, my aunts, so many people really did instill their virtues and their character in me. I think that's what kind of made me the man I am now. I'm very much so a thoughtful person. I'm always thinking about someone, in a capacity that maybe a man wouldn't normally think of, but a woman thinks of in a caring position, So I think that if I didn't have just my mom, I'd probably be like an asshole, I probably would have. But my mom is such a graceful person, so it's a blessing to be raised by my mom. It's not all discrediting what she did for me, or how I was brought up. It was a great time, actually.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
how did high school go for you?
High school was a blur. High school was a big ass blur. When I was in high school, I graduated from West Jefferson High School in Harvey. And honestly, it was just the fastest 4 years of my life. I think I was a typical teenager trying to figure out who I am, really, especially my position in a city that I love so much. I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor. I knew I was going to be a teacher. I had no real ambition outside of being a creator, So in high school, it really was just kind of like, damn, all your friends getting ready to go to medical school and, all this stuff, and you still drawing pictures, So it was a tricky time, but it was a it was a graceful transition from childhood to adulthood, high school.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
so even that, the next transitioning out of high school, how
Yeah.
did that work out for you? What did you do after high school?
So after high school, I went to UNO. I went to UNO for maybe like a year and a half. I majored in film.
Everybody know what UNO is.
Went to UNO. Oh my God. And so went to UNO thinking I would have like the typical college experience, you know. You probably pledge something or you probably meet all these great people. And when I got to UNO, it was just like, I said, what the hell am I? You know, like, it was just like, what am I doing here? It was not at all no type of memorable experience. To this day, like, I still have issues with UNO and transcripts and GPA records, and it was not a fun time. But what it was great exposure on the side of a river I wasn't raised on, you know. Once college came and I went to UNO, I met all kind of people who were from the side, you know, and so many different artists and creators and stuff like that. And it was just a real influence on how I looked at the city and how I viewed myself within the city artistically. So, you know, college was a fun time, but it also was a waste of time, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to, I think in the generation of that time, how old are you again?
31.
31, okay,
Yeah.
so in that generation of maybe, that's 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. So I believe that at that time, college was really pressed on
For sure.
on that generation.
For sure.
And there are so many other ways now to do what you want to do
For
and
sure.
and love it and make the income to actually live on
Right.
your own.
Right.
That it's a historical moment. Do you have any input on that?
I mean, you know what? To that point that you said, when I was at UNO, that was the first time I ever had a educator tell me or ask me. She was like, I was in a art class. I was barely going to any classes. You know, at this point, it was just like, I'm here to kind of get my student refund check and go back home, you know? And so when I was in class, I would miss all these classes. And around midterms, the professor was like, if you don't come, you're going to fail. You know, like, I'm going to have to fail you. And so I remember it was a portfolio assignment. And she said, you have to do like 12, 13 images, different images, and that's going to be your final, you know? And I knocked it out in like a night. I remember I must have stayed up all night watching College Hill on BET and just drawing out my mind delirious. And I went to school the next day and, you know, gave it a portfolio, finished, completed, everything was done. And so about a week later, I got like an A on the whole portfolio. And she said it point blank to my face. She was like, why are you here? You know, why are you here? She said, you can do the work. You don't really need this to facilitate what you already do. And it was the first time I said to myself, like, why am I here? Like, why am I in debt with no degree? You know, so that was the transition out of college. And that's when I kind of got a good vision of a life without education, higher education, but still fulfilling life as a creator. You know, like, I knew I could do something because someone else told me you could do it without this. So that was the moment for me at UNO.
And even more to that point, how important do you sometimes feel that we need those people to tell us what we don't see?
Very important. To me, it's very important. I'm gonna be honest with you. As a person who's always alone, like, you know, especially in my mind and then in my studio space, it's sometimes very important to have an outside perspective on not only your work, but just like your position or your opportunity, or I'm trying to find a better word for it, but I feel like if she had not told me that I could do this without going through this rigorous course that was not working out for me, I would have probably still tried to make that rigorous course work, and it was not working. So it was a validating moment. I think that's kind of the word I'm searching for. It is important sometimes to have those people validate ideas that you can't think of or see yourself, you know. For me it is. To have that outside perspective.
So I'm sure, you know, you were in the art class and she's telling you need to be professional at that time.
Yeah.
So before that, like, how long has art actually been a part of your life?
All my life. I swear, like, since I was 3 years old, I have a funny story in my family where they would say, before you could tie your shoes, before you could, you know, speak, whatever. I didn't talk to people. I was very silent as a kid, but they were saying how I would sit at the table and write down passages from the Times-Picayune, just practicing handwriting at like 2 and 3 years old. And that was just a comfort for me. So I always had a pencil and a pen in my hand. And I think to the previous point, when it came to like high school and college, I think that's what made it difficult for me was it was so second nature, it wasn't a real thing. You know, I felt like I need to learn something, like what I'm supposed to do in life, be a doctor, be somebody, because this can't be it. You know, this is just drawing, you know. But I then realized as an adult, it's a gift. You know, it's not just a little habit you do. You know, it's a gift, and you kind of have to hone that and see what blossoms from doing it. So since I was a kid, like 3 years old, 93, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, what keeps you inspired now?
I have the dumbest thing, so I'm gonna just say them all point blank. I get inspired by black artists. Black art will always be like my biggest inspiration. New Orleans itself, I look at New Orleans like a person, you know, and so I'm always trying to convey this person in the best light, but at its truest self. I never want to mimic New Orleans or tone it down, but I want to kind of elevate it in everything I do. Always, I never get bored of centering and drawing New Orleans in any scope. So New Orleans for sure. The 90s, I don't know what it is about that era. Maybe it's because I was, you know, born in the 90s and raised in that era. But between experiencing New Orleans in the 90s, between pop culture in the 90s, between just the economy in the 90s, like it was really an era where everything was at its peak, you know? So I still take from that. And I kind of really run with it to this day, the 90s. And weed, I love weed. I'm gonna just be honest with you. It is like the gift that keeps on giving. So when you talk about where'd you get this idea from, like, it was the blunt. It was a blunt. There was nothing really important behind it but the herb. So yeah, the weed.
Dope. All right, so what now? Wait.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Being how you saying like you look at New Orleans kind of like a muse for you.
Yep.
Do you feel like a certain way, like as you see the city changing, like do you feel like it's part of your responsibility to like
Absolutely.
protect the culture
Absolutely.
that you do it?
Absolutely. To the point, that's a great question, because a lot of times, you know, when I make art, my art is very specific, Black, New Orleans, identifiable. You know what I mean? Like, it's never no romantic French Quarter scene. It's never no Pete Fountain playing no clarinet. You know, like it's very much so. I'm trying to always accentuate the things that inspire me as a kid. I mean, I remember growing up not being able to go to Teen Summit because I was too young, and I knowing it was a big deal. And nowadays, you know, the new kids are like, what the hell is a Teen Summit? But to me, it's like, you gotta know about Teen Summit because it was such an important part of my upbringing, you know? I think about stuff like the Coca-Cola fair they used to have, the Pepsi-Cola Super Fair at the Superdome, stuff like that. And then I think about just even like the women, the men, the style, the vernacular, the lingo, the you know, everything, the sound of it. Especially post-Katrina, these things got washed away, but then forgotten with the resurgence of like just people who don't look like you or I, but they afford everything we can't afford right now in these spaces that don't belong to us. So I feel like it's my job through the artwork to always tell the stories that aren't being told or that people just kind of don't know about because it's been washed over, you know? So, hi. So yeah, I do feel like it's my responsibility to always keep that alive, you know, the city spirit that I remember it to be.
Cool. So what would you consider to be success for you?
That's a good question too. That's a good question. That's a very good question. I don't believe success to only be money. I have kind of learned that in my 30s. Once you make your first few major paychecks and you still have goals that aren't met or ambitions that aren't like stroked yet, you realize this can't just be the satisfying part of the end game. So success to me really is, for me right now, just warm reception for the city that I love so much. You know, the people who I want to represent, the people who inspire me, the places that inspire me. I think that getting a warm reception for what I do is success. I could easily be some guy who, lived in New York, from New Orleans, and never paid no mind to New Orleans, but everything here has really kind of morphed and influenced who I am. So success is this, doing interviews, for being myself, and for doing what I do just to do it. That's success, although the paycheck is nice too.
Right. So
It is,
to spin off of that, as your success is growing, your notoriety is growing.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself saying like, no, I don't want to do this, or like, are you protective of about what you want? I know you recently did some stuff with the Pelicans.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think some stuff, a lot of times I find myself doing even more things that I wouldn't normally do, only because I say, why limit myself? As an artist, I think it's kind of my job to be as extensive as possible. If you present me something I never seen before, never imagined, then yes, I want to do it. Even though if someone says, well, that's beneath what you do. I don't believe in that. As a creative, there's no such thing as low tier art or high tier art or important things or unimportant things. It really is just creativity, at its peak. And I feel like there are some things that I won't do, but only because I did it before, So it's you got to keep it fresh, you got to keep it authentic, you got to keep it new and original. Like, that's the thrilling part about being an artist, for real. Like when you think about it, it's not about the financial gain of it. It's not about the Instagram followers and all that crazy shit. It really is about having some type of satisfaction from making something new, for trying an original idea. For having a vision and executing it and it being warmly received, that's success. Like, that really is, the whole gist of it. So, yeah, that was a long ass answer. I'm sorry.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So what do you feel makes New Orleans New Orleans?
Oh man. Black people make New Orleans New Orleans. Like, let's start there. I don't care about no food item. I don't care about no historical fact. Like, unless a black person's in the picture, you're not talking about New Orleans. You're talking about a settlement of some sort, The way we talk, the attitude we have, the influence we have with culture, with fashion, with music, and just even just the hospitality we have. It's more than Southern hospitality. It's a warm reception between people who may not be where you're from, but where they're from, so you have a relation to them. New Orleans is just like, it's really a living, breathing thing. So I think that black people is what make New Orleans more than anything. That's kind of my final answer. Not even a food, not a snowball stand. It's black people. Black people make New Orleans.
That's
Yeah.
cool, man. So tell us a story of something that only could happen in New Orleans that happened to you.
Oh, I have the best story. I'll never forget this story. My first time ever going to Super Sunday, I was like 7 or 8 years old. West Bank, mind you. We have Super Sunday in Algiers, you know that, but it's nothing compared to, So my first time coming on this side, I was like 7 years old with my stepdad at the time. And I will never forget when I knew the difference between the West Bank and this side of the river. I was walking with my dad in the park, don't even know the park we was at, and somebody bumped into me, and I dropped my turkey neck, and I was like, oh no, we got to go home. And I was like, these niggas crazy. So, that was just something I say, this could only happen in New Orleans. Why do I have a turkey neck in my hand walking? Where am I, But being at a Super Sunday, that's a specific New Orleans thing. Like, you're not going to find it in anywhere. What's a Super Sunday in Baton Rouge? What's a Super Sunday in Atlanta? What is that? So eating a turkey neck as a kid and dropping my turkey neck at Super Sunday, that's my New Orleans story. Like, yeah, that's totally it. Before meeting anybody, that's my story.
Telling us, what are you up to now and which plans you have for the future?
So what I'm up to now, I'm working on all original pieces, my own original pieces, not collaborations, because I'm trying to have a debut art show, like an actual art show this time. But I've been just really pushing and expanding and discovering new things and new facets of the city. So right now, I really am exploring and creating. For the future, there's a few things that are coming up that I can't talk about yet, but there are some really cool stuff The Pelicans, we could talk about that. You know, like that came out great. You know, I know next season there's something else with them, but I can't say much about that. But that's it. You know, just new art, new stuff, new collaborations, new surprises, and innovation. So yeah.
Cool. So with all that being said, with all of your experiences, what would you tell your younger self, or any youth right now? Any good advice from the experiences that you've had, and that probably would even make you better than you are even now?
I think the best advice that I could give myself, younger self, and any youth in New Orleans, and just like any child, any black child specifically, with a vision that does not fit into any spectrum, any category, is just to go through it. You know, a lot of times we can get disillusioned and kind of feel that it's a waste of time. You know, it's not working out, it's not pushing through for you. No one's understanding your ideas, so why even do it? And it took me to literally get in my 30s before it was like, this is for a reason, this is a purpose, it's not a waste of your time, you know? Even though I always made artwork, I didn't think it was a lucrative, like, you know, career. It wasn't like something I went to school for to study. I never really had academic training, so it really was just my own volition. But it wasn't until now when I see the impact that your ideas, your creativity can have on other people who don't even look like you, it becomes worth it. So any kid with a dream, myself included, it just keep going with it, keep through it. You know, you will see yourself on the other side before you know it. You know, and I think that's for everybody, not even children. No matter how old you are, just keep going, keep going. If it's a crazy idea, if no one understands it, if it's something you've never seen before, that's the best idea. You know, you want that. You want to have something that's so authentic to yourself that no one even understands it. That's the best thing. So just keep being you and keep going. That really is the best advice I can offer anybody.
Dope. Okay, so let everybody know where they can find you, where they can support you at.
Let's see, because Sally Mae may be watching. Let's see, where can you find me? You can find me in the West Bank. You can. All right, now where's my address? So, you can find me on Instagram, Jacques Pierre Francois. You can find me on Twitter, Jacques P. Francois. I have a website with different random items I may drop sporadically, doormats and mugs and shit, jacqueshop.com. But I'm always on the internet. I'm always there. That's where the art lives. Until I'm in a physical space like this cool place. But yeah, I'm always on the internet in those little 3 places for sure.
All right. Dope. Thank you so much.
That was it.
That was it.
This is so easy.
Only in New Orleans.